Hello, 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 everyone. Ciao, everyone. Welcome to another Fiber Strike stream. For your host, Fiber Strike 95, and today we're here in beautiful Italy today. I hope you're all doing well here today. We're actually right here just outside the city of Bologna, Italy, here in Lima Echo Papa Echo. And today we have a very epic stream today. We're covering one of the great derbies in Italian football, the Derby della Madonnina, aka the Milan Derby today, and it's featuring the top two teams in the Italian League of Serie A, Inter and AC Milan. Should be an epic matchup this Sunday, of course, between two of the great football clubs here in the country. So before we get started, I do want to say hello to everyone else here to see you and all that. And hello to all the mods and lurkers. I hope you're all doing well. But this matchup is supposed to be a big one, though. These two clubs are in the top two of the Serie A standings this year. Inter Milan has been completely dominant in the league so far this year. They've won the last 5 games. They won the last 5 league games, dating all the way back to their matchup against Cremonese. Their last Serie A loss, by the way, the last non-draw in Serie A competition, you would have to go back to January 11th for the last time Inter has actually drawn and lost. In fact, they haven't lost a Serie A match. They haven't actually lost in the Serie A since November 23rd, 2025. They haven't lost a single game in Serie A since 2025. They've been completely unstoppable this year. So far in this version of Serie A. In AC Milan, however, is 10 points behind. They've only suffered 2 defeats all season with 57 points total, only 2 defeats. They've had a few draws, but this is a very big matchup. And this might determine the Serie A title potentially. If Inter were to beat AC Milan, they would be 13 points ahead with only just 13 points ahead. We still got 10 games left to go, but this would be huge if Inter were to get the big win on Sunday. So big stuff going on in Italian football. So here's the flight plan for this afternoon's flight. We'll start at Bologna Airport. We'll fly over downtown Bologna, and then we'll also visit the Stadio Renato Dall'Aria. So we'll take a picture of here, downtown Bologna. Make our way there. We're going to head then south. And we're going to head over to the beautiful city of Florence. We'll fly over the Stadio Artemio Franchi, the home ground of Fiorentina. And of course, we'll visit downtown Florence on the banks of the Arno River. So we'll fly over Florence. Then from there, we'll head over to Empoli. And then we'll make our first stop here in Pisa, Lima India Romeo Papa at San Gisto Airport. Then from there, we'll travel over through Pisa. We'll fly into Sicilia Arena, home of Pisa SC. Then, of course, we'll fly over the famous Piazza di Tormo and the Leaning Tower of Pisa. We'll check out all of that. We'll visit this area. Then once we fly here, we'll head over to the coast, the Cinque Terre coast at La Spezia. And we'll make our way over to the beautiful port city of Genoa. Very historic port area. Genoa, we'll make our stop here at the Firefighter Hub at Siestra Airport in Genoa. Then from there, we'll fly up north into Milan. We'll travel to the famous San Siro, the home of both AC and Inter. Yes, they both share the same stadium. Then we'll fly into the downtown and fly over the famous landmarks here in Milan. Most notably, of course, the famous the Church of the Grand Da Vinci's Last Supper, the Basilica di Santa Maria delle Grazie, and of course Milan's world famous cathedral. And then we'll stop at Milan's Linate Airport. So that would be it. Quite an action-packed flight with tons of really interesting scenery and historic landmarks. Hey, Sterling Dev, good to see you, Sterling Dev. I'm doing very good. I hope you're doing well, my dude. can't wait for this flight. So we'll fly a Cessna 172 this morning, and we'll get afternoon, I mean, or evening, and if you're out in Europe. I mean, there were some other really good matchups this weekend, by the way. There was quite a few I could have picked this weekend, of course. The other matchup I would have picked this weekend, by the way, there was a couple of them. It was this one, Benfica versus Porto, the O Clásico in Portugal. And yes, and of course, the Eternal Derby in Croatia. Those were all the ones I was interested in picking. But at the end of the day, I ended up wanting to pick Dinamo. I was wanting to pick this one since I wanted to do something to Italy for this season, and I thought with AC Ninja being in the top two, it just made kind of sense. So I went with this. And we haven't done Italy yet, so I wanted to do the one Italian matchup this year. So should be very, very. So we'll do that one. So we're gonna go ahead and get ready to take off here. We're gonna go ahead and put the thing up here. So basically, we're going to be in Bologna this morning. Our first waypoint is the city of Bologna. Beautiful city in this part in northern Italy. It's actually Italy's 7th most populous city, with a population of around 390,000 inhabitants. One very cool thing about the city of Bologna, of course, and one of its most fascinating parts about this city is that Bologna is actually home to the oldest university in continuous operation in the globe. Yes, this city is home to the University of Bologna, established all the way back in 1088 AD. And this is still in continuous operation to this day. And it's been an important urban area in this country for centuries, even dating back to the Etruscans, the Romans, and of course, it was still a massive city even nowadays. Not only that, but Bologna is famous for its towers, churches, lengthy porticos, and of course, its historical, well-preserved historical center. There's tons of things in Bologna that make it really special. So really cool stuff. Some of the major landmarks here in this city. One very interesting thing about its landmarks, of course, and one of its really historical ones, the San Petronio Basilica, is actually the 10th largest church in the world. It's still unfinished, despite being built between 1388 and 1479. Culturally, of course, Bologna has achieved many nicknames, reference its cuisines. It's got a rich cuisine with using rich meats. It's also a very left-wing area because it used to host Communist Party were elected here in this city. And of course, in terms of sports, this city is actually a basketball town, believe it or not. Basketball is the most followed sport in the city, unbelievably as crazy it sounds, considering how crazy football is. If you ask many Italians how big football is, and yet basketball is actually the bigger name in this town. So we're going to climb up to 500 feet. We're going to climb up to Bologna. One interesting thing about Bologna, of course, they do have a football club, Bologna FC 1909, dating back, of course, to 1909. This club is actually a very historic club. They were actually one of the founding members of the Italian League, Serie A, of course. But many of their league titles were during the late 1930s, was their golden age. Of course, their league dominance ended by 1964, the last time they won it. but they still won 2 Italian Cups and have played in 79 seasons in the Italian league, the ninth most in football ninth most in Italian football history. And they play at the Stadio Renato di Ari, which is the 10th largest stadium in Italian football with 36,000 people. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna slow down a little bit. So this is downtown Bologna, guys. Really historic city, of course. So here's the landmarks of Bologna. You can actually see here. Really beautiful stuff here. I'm very excited to check this out, of course. So this is Bologna. Really historic city. Look at the beautiful buildings here. The cathedral and all that. Wow. Absolutely beautiful. What a beautiful, beautiful city. We'll turn left. And so we can get the city through a closer detail, but you can see maybe the building. Yeah, look at that. That is the Piazza Maggiore, is the palace. There's the Basilica di San Petronino. And that tall building is the Ledu Torri, which is dated back to the 1100s. You can actually go up that tower, by the way, and check out the scenery from up here. Really cool stuff. So we're going to get to the Italian Stadium here in Bologna. Should be here very soon. Really cool stuff. Bologna, neat city, of course. All the way up here. So once we get to the Italian state, oh, hey, you gonna see a Typhon? No worries. Oh, have you already worked? Oh, I know what this is. You know why they did this? This stadium's actually undergoing renovation so far. It's actually undergoing renovation this year. So if you notice Bologna's stadium down here with the roof, well, this actually is because this stadium is actually going under a very heavy renovation for it's actually going under a huge renovation so far. And that's because this stadium is going under a huge renovation, which is $200 million, and it's going to be built for completion for the UEFA Euro 2032. So that's what they're building. So this is what the renovation looks like. Very interesting. I didn't think they would actually put that in the sim. So yeah, that's Bologna FC. So we're gonna go ahead and shift left. Let's go ahead and let's start. Let's go ahead and climb. So now we're going to finally talk about our big game, of course, the Derby della Madonna. So we finally start on our notes, finally. So this legendary Italian football derby, the Derby della Milano, is between the two big Milan clubs, Inter and AC, two of the most successful clubs in Italian football history. Of course, one interesting thing about these two clubs is their different classes. Inter Milan was mainly for those of the bourgeoisie, the wealthy, and while AC Milan was always supported by the working class. They're known as the Caciquevid, meaning screwdriver, reference to the blue-collar worker that ended up supporting AC Milan. Of course, their other nicknames also depend on the club. For example, of course, Inter were known as the was the Nerazzurri, which is the blue and black, while the Rossoneri was the red black. Taking place at least twice a year during V League fixtures, this rivalry has expanded to other competitions, the Coppa Italia, the Champions League, and the Italian Super Cup, as well as minor tournaments, and it's one of the only major crosstown derbies that have always been played in the same stadium. Yes, the San Siro is their home. They both call it their home. And of course, Inter Milan's ultras mainly are in the north end, AC Milan's ultras the south end. But this historic derby dates back to 1909. As of 245 matches so far, Inter has actually been the more successful club in the derby, winning the match 91 times in the derby to AC Milan's 83 with 71 draws. So very, very pretty intense rivalry, of course. So the history of the Della Derby Madonna starts all the way back in 1899, when Herbert Kipling and the others founded the Milan Cricket and Football Club. And of course, one interesting thing about this football club is this was AC Milan being founded first. Alfred Edwards, a former British Vice Consul in Milan, was the club's first elected president. And of course, the trophy that was first won by AC Milan was the King's Medal, the Medaglia del Re, in 1900. And the team won the National Leagues 3 times during that in 1901 and back-to-back in 1906 and 1907. However, there was led to an issue, of course. On March 9th, 1908, issues over signing of foreign players led to a split, and basically AC Milan had a policy of signing best Italian products. However, some people wanted to sign foreign talent, and that led to a split between the two clubs, and that was where Football Club Internazionale was founded, aka Inter Milan was founded. The first derby match between these two rivals was held in the Chiasso Cup of 1908, a football tournament in Switzerland, actually. And in October that year, the Rossoneri, aka AC Milan, won 2-1. Of course, while the rivalry was faced each other off sporadically over the early years, the rivalry has been renewed ever since and has been a major piece of Italian football at least twice a year since then. So that's how their derby got started, of course, in AC and Inter. Inter won its first Serie A title back in 1929-1930, was Inter's very first Serie A title, which was the first edition of the Italian Football Championship, which is the third league title for the club after 1910-20. Inter then won again in 1930, in 1940 with one of the greatest players of all time, Giuseppe Meazza. We'll talk more about him. And Inter really dominated the early Serie A years, of course. With 10 victories for Inter, 7 draws, and no victories. In 1951, AC Milan finally won its first Serie A title and its first league title in 44 years. Big deal for AC Milan fans. Now, what really elevated this rivalry was the 1960s, and the Milan Derby saw 2 big stars of Italian football came to face. For Inter, it was Sandro Mazzola, who was actually the son of the former Torino player Valentino Mazzola, who, unfortunately, along with some of his other teammates, tragically passed away in the 1949 Superga air disaster. Now, I do want to bring that up more into detail, but basically for those who weren't aware about the history of Italian football, this air disaster happened when a Fiat G212 airliner, which was carrying the entire Torino team, and it crashed into the retaining wall at the back of the Basilica of Superga, which is in a hilltop near Turin, and it killed all 31 people on board, which was an absolute tragedy for the people in Turin. It was all the players, the coaching staff, the club officials, journalists, and flight crew were all killed. Yeah, the entire team was wiped out. And you know what made us sad, though? Was this era in the 1940s was when Torino FC was at their most dominant, was the 1940s. They were the dominant club in that part of Italy. And that is why that tragedy is a dark mark in Italian football history. It's just very tragic. It's like the Italian version of the Munich air disaster for Manchester United. It's very tragic. I'll tell you that much. Of course, his Mazzola's counterpart in AC Milan was Gianni Rivera, aka the Golden Boy, and this era saw brilliant derby matches and an ever-increasing rivalry. You see, AC Milan won the European Cup in 1962-63, and Inter, with one of the best teams in history at that point, won back-to-back in 1964 and 1965. As well as 2 Intercontinental Cup wins, and with others, 2 Cup finals were played in 1967-72. In 1968-69, AC Milan won the league once again. A new friend request. Let me see. Captain Ron wanted to be. Of course, however, there were several years the Derby did not take place. And of course, the Derby did not take place in 1980-81 and 1982-83 due to AC Milan's double relegation to Serie B. Yes, AC Milan was relegated, believe it or not. Hard to believe that nowadays, but AC Milan got relegated. However, if you ask most AC Milan fans their greatest era, it had to be the late 1980s to the mid-2000s. And it's often hailed as the greatest Milan side ever. The 1989 champions, led by Arrigo Sacchi, contained some of the most legendary players in European football at the top of their time. Marco Van Basten, Rue Gilliatt, Frank Rijkaard, and the greatest AC Milan player of all time, Paolo Maldini, among others. And Milan's dominance domestically and internationally had been seen to get 4 league titles and 3 European Cups between 1989 and 1998, which was absolutely crazy. That era of AC Milan was absolutely cracked. And we'll talk about these legendary players. Inter also won the 1988 Serie A title with the most all-time record points in Serie A history. And they had great players too, like Lothar Matthaus and Andres Bremi, of course, some great talents. Now, of course, the 2 clubs also famously met during the 2002-2003 Champions League semifinals, the first ever European matches between the 2 sides, which AC Milan went through on away goals, despite both clubs playing in the same stadium. And AC Milan were to go and win the competition. Inter's long wait for a league title to begin in 1999 finally arrived in 2006, and this one was a very controversial one. You see, originally, Juventus was supposed to win that title. Then came the infamous Calciopoli scandal. Now, if you guys don't know about this scandal, this scandal did irreparable damage to Italian football. Basically, it was centered on match fixing with manipulation of referee appointments to favor certain clubs. And it was actually uncovered in May 2006. It showed between the club's executives and refereeing being accused of selecting favorable refugees. And this implicated Juventus, as well as clubs like Fiorentina, Lazio, AC Milan, and Regina. As a result, Juventus' Serie A title was stripped, as well as deducting points to AC Milan's final overall total, and controversially handed over to Inter, which was very controversial by many, and many felt it should have been the case to be unawarded. Inter then went on to win the 2006-07 Serie A title the next year, and they actually continued to run through Serie A during those times until 2010. But the 2009-10 season was a very special one for Inter Milan. Not only did they win the Serie A title, they won the Coppa Italia and their first Champions League since 1965. However, the next year, AC Milan returned to get back the Scudetto, thanks to former Inter striker Zlatan Ibrahimovic. However, unfortunately for the Milan clubs, this was not really a good time. The 2010s was not a good time if you're a fan of the Milan clubs, because guess what? You all had to be trailed behind Juventus. And it was a very disappointing as well. Finally, of course, as well, however, thankfully Juventus' run ended in 2021, finally winning the East, their 19th title the following season in 2021-2022, and then, of course, Inter won the Supercoppa final against AC Milan. So, definitely that is the history of the Milan Derby, everyone. So that is about the history of it, of course. But basically, for those who aren't aware of it, obviously, but yes, this derby is really passionate and really interesting, of course. However, if you want to ask most people Milan, there is a club they might hate more than each other, and it's Juventus, actually. If it's one thing Italian fans hate more than each other, the Milan fans hate each other, it's Juventus. Yes, Juventus is the most hated club in Italy. Juve is incredibly hated for a lot of reasons in Italian football. Juventus is even more successful in Italian football than both AC and Inter. No, seriously. Inter and AC combined have won 39 titles. Juventus has won 36 of them. They've won nearly as many titles as both Milan clubs put together. Which is pretty crazy to think about. So definitely very interesting stuff, obviously. These Italian clubs, lots of passion. Their ultras culture definitely brings a lot of passion into each of their matches, of course. So definitely very important. Now in Italian football, I do want to talk a little bit about Serie A for a bit. So Serie A is actually pretty recent, as 1929. It's the highest league in Italy. Known for title with this one, defensive rigor. It's actually among the strongest leagues in global football, and it's ranked second in the UEFA coefficient rankings as of 2024-2025, behind England's Premier League and ahead of Spain's La Liga. And of course, there have been several really successful clubs. Obviously, Inter and AC are two of the three most successful. However, the most successful club in Italy has been Juventus. In fact, 65, I believe. Actually, 75 of the championships in Serie A were won by the three clubs of Juventus, Inter Milan, and AC. And of course, Juventus is the most successful club domestically here in Italy. Outside of the big three, of course, of Juventus, Inter, and AC, the next most successful club is Genoa, actually. And get this, Genoa haven't even won a title in over 100 years. Their last title was in 1923-24. Over 100 years, a century. Can you believe having your last title was over a century ago? That's pretty crazy. Oh, yes, they were vicious. Oh, I know. Juventus supporters can be that way. Ultras culture is very prevalent in Italy. I don't blame you. Italian supporters and ultras are pretty supportive, obviously. Even more so in Italy than many other countries. Like England, for example, used to have stuff like that with the hooligans and stuff, but that's not nearly as prevalent as it used to be. For sure. We're going to descend upon Florence, of course. But one of the really big ones, though, other really successful clubs, Torino has won 7 of them, but they won most of theirs during their golden age in the 40s. With 7. Bologna have also won 7 as well. Then after that, though, outside Torino and Bologna, the other one tied with 7 is a club called Pro Vercelli, which right now they're playing in Serie C, the 3rd tier of Italian football, and they won 7 of them. Their last one was 1921. Now, for a more recent club, we have the defending champions from last year, Napoli, who've won the title in 2024-2025. They have 4 of them. Roma with 3. Lazio with 2. Fiorentina last won their title in 1968. And then you also have Cagliari, who won a title in 1969. And finally, the last active club here in Serie A to win a title, Hellas Verona in 1984. With the Italian champions. In terms of clubs who've been playing in the Italian league, only one club has never been relegated from Serie A, and that was Inter Milan. They have never been relegated before. Then, of course, the clubs then after that was Juventus and AS Roma with 93 seasons once. They've only been relegated once. But AC Milan had 2 relegations with 92 seasons. Then the club with the 5th most seasons of Serie A is Fiorentina. Yes, Fiorentina actually played a long time in Italian football during their times. So some pretty crazy stuff in the Italian leagues this year. But yes. Oh yeah, definitely. Serie A with all the ultra stuff going on, police presence is definitely present in Italian football, of course. In terms of this year's Serie A, this has been a very interesting year, of course. Inter and AC are top 2, but this has been a very unusual Serie A this year. Juventus is 6th, which is crazy. Napoli at 3rd, which is they're still really good. It's just it hurts that Kevin De Bruyne is not playing. He's unfortunately injured. But Roma at 4th, which I knew Roma was going to do well. But 5th place caught me by surprise. Como is actually in the top 5. Yes, Como, who, I mean, the weird thing about Como is they're technically the wealthiest club in Italy, actually. Because they're owned by Indonesian billionaires. And they're the richest football club owners in Italy. So they're not afraid to spend. And as a result, Como are doing super well. Juventus at 6. Some other interesting placements. Lazio at 11th. And Fiorentina, who started the season terribly, are now out of the relegation zone. Are just barely out of relegation to goal difference. But yeah, the bottom half of Italy is Lecce, Pisa, and Verona. So, pretty crazy stuff. Finally, of course, as well, and now for our last game day, of course, was Rangers versus Celtic, was our last game day flight. It turned out the result from the last match, of course, turned out very well for Hearts, actually. This actually was the best case outcome for Hearts, believe it or not, because Rangers and Celtic drew. Rangers took a 2-0 lead early, by the 26th minute. However, by the second half, Celtic put 2 goals back and ended up drawing 2-2, which was actually the best case scenario for Hearts because guess what? Since they both drew, that means Hearts are now 5 points ahead of Celtic with only just a couple match days left to go. And they're only 5 points ahead with only with only 4 more match days to go. That's crazy. Hearts can, and I think Hearts can actually do it. We might get a new champion of Scotland for the first time since Aberdeen. That's crazy. It might actually happen. So we're about to hit the Florence, of course. You guys all probably know about Florence, Italy. It's Tuscany's largest city with 362,000 people. Of course, this area was a center of medieval European trade and finance, and it's the birthplace of the Renaissance as a major artistic, cultural, commercial, political, and economic and financial center. One of the absolutely amazing things about Florence, of course, was ruled by the powerful Medici family. And for about 6 years, it served as the capital of the Kingdom of Italy before they moved it to Rome, obviously. And of course, we all know about Florence's UNESCO World Heritage Site. The entire historic center is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it features some of the great landmarks of the city. It's one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and I mean, the sights of this city are just special. Of course, we're going to fly over the Florence Cathedral, the Santa Maria di Fiore, which was built by Filippo Brunelleschi. Commenced in 1296, completed by 1436. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but I mean, there's so many beautiful things. They also have the old bridge with many shops, the Church of San Lorenzo, and more. So we'll do plenty of flying here, of course. So we're about to arrive into beautiful Florence. I'm gonna actually go a little lower. So I'm gonna go ahead and so we're gonna go a little lower. So we're gonna go a little lower. So welcome to Florence, everyone. So beautiful city. I'm actually going to be visiting Florence in April during my vacation to the Mediterranean. I got an excursion that flies into Florence. So I'm looking forward to finally visiting this city in real life, of course. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm very excited to check out Florence, Italy for the first time. So this is the stadium we see here is the home of Fiorentina. One of Italy's most historic clubs. Fiorentina is a big part of their city, of course. It's Fiorentina's proud club, one of Italy's most historic. They were refounded actually back in 2002 following bankruptcy, but these clubs are known as the Ida Viola, the Purple or Violets, because they're one of the few clubs in Europe to wear purple. But Fiorentina's a very historic club and very historic club. Fiorentina definitely is one of the. It's definitely probably. I think Fiorentina is probably my favorite Italian club. If I had to pick a favorite Italian club, it would be Fiorentina, and that's because they share the same color as my local club. They both wear purple. They're proud to wear purple colors. So this is Fiorentina's home ground. Home of Fiorentina. Fiorentina. So we're going to finally go down. So Florence, amazing city. We should check out the landmarks here. So, hey, Super Tom, good to see you. Hello. We're doing some flying here in Italy, of course. We're in Florence as we speak. Doing some amazing flying here in one of Italy's most historic cities, Florence. Oh, that's a really good shot. What a marvelous picture. I can't wait to visit this place. Florence. I wish I could visit this place right now. There's the historic center. Oh man, this is just glorious. Oh, what a beautiful city. Oh, Florence. What a gorgeous city. So we're gonna fly over into Genoa, of course. We're gonna head to Pisa next. Oh, no worry. We seen you Fuzz by Fly by on NorCal. I wondered why I haven't seen you for so long. Really? Oh, turn off my follow. Oh, okay. Ah, gotcha. Yeah, Twitch turned on to remove my follow. Oh, no worries, Super Tom. I appreciate you following me again yesterday. The reason for me being late, oh, no worries about Super Typhon. I appreciate you watching with your sister. Like I said, family needs come first. I understand. So we're going to basically be doing this flying, of course. We're in Italy for the Derby della Madonna. So I'll briefly get you guys started on our way over to Italy, of course. But yeah, Fiorentina is one of the most historic clubs in Italy. They actually put in a pretty large stadium that seats 43,000 people, of course. Very historic city, of course. It's actually one of the bigger ones in Serie A. In fact, the cities with the largest crowds here are actually San Siro's the largest stadium in Italy with 80,000. Then after that, Lazio Roma at the Stadio Olimpico, and then Napoli is Napoli with 54,000, Fiorentina with 43, and Juventus at their state-of-the-art Allianz Arena with 41,000. However, if it's something to criticize Italian football with, it's the fact Italy, for some reason, doesn't really have any of the modern facilities that the other leagues have. And that is definitely why Italian football hasn't been as relevant as it has been in years. There's actually a reason why Italian football isn't as relevant as it used to be. The infrastructure is older. They're not even, the teams can't even own their own stadiums because they're all publicly owned and they're difficult to revenue. And thus, because they don't own their own infrastructure, they can't make money, which is really bad for Italian football because they need the money to keep up. Another reason Italian football hasn't been as relevant, a lot of financial instability, being still high debt with many of their clubs. Lack of talent development, poor marketing, and the reputational damage from the Calciopoli scandal really damaged Serie A in Italian football. And that is a big problem with it as well, because at one point, this was the dominant football was in Italy. Nowadays, it's not really as relevant anymore, and that's a bit sad. Because Italy has some really historic clubs and really historic clubs with really historic fan bases too. So I'm going to talk a little bit briefly. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit briefly about Inter Milan for a bit. So let's talk. So let's talk about Inter for a brief bit as we fly our way to Pisa, of course. Inter Milan, or Football Club Internazionale Milano, is one of Italy's most famous clubs, and it's the only team to have participated in the top division of Italian football since its debut in 1909, having never been relegated to Serie B. Since 1947, they've actually shared the San Siro Stadium, the largest stadium in Italy, with AC Milan, and of course, they play in the Derby della Madonna. And this club was founded in 1908 after a split with the Milan Football and Cricket Club due to issues with signing foreign talents. Of course, won its first championship in 1910. Since its formation, they've won 37 domestic trophies, 20 league titles, 9 Coppa Italia, and 8 Italian Super Cups. And they've won 5 straight league titles, which was an all-time record at the time, and have won the European Champions League 3 times, 1964, 65, and 2010. However, that being said, Inter's definitely had a lot of success over the years, of course. The club has also won 3 UEFA Cup, 3 Europa Leagues, 2 Intercontinental Cups, and a Club World Cup. And Inter is the only Italian club that's at least won an official trophy every decade since its founding in 1908. So pretty crazy that Inter is one of their most successful clubs in the country, of course. Very historic club with a long and rich history. So, very historic club, a lot of history, of course. One of the really big things about Inter and AC, obviously, is definitely one of the really big clubs. Of course, in terms of Inter Milan, obviously, some of their famous nicknames, the Nerazzurri, the Black and Blues, is their most famous nickname, but they're also called La Beniamata, the well-cherished one, and El Biscone, the big grass snake, which actually, by the way, is actually the symbol of Milan. It's a historic symbol of Milan itself. So this is the Italian city of Empoli. We just flew over a bit. So this is Empoli. So we're going to fly over here as well. Now, in terms of other matchups this week, in terms of other stuff that happened in sports this past week, for a recap of last week's sort of stuff, for my teams, of course, on Tuesday, of course, was another Premier League. The Premier League happened again on Tuesday. Some other stuff that happened between the week. Real Madrid lost to Getafe, which was a massive blow for Real Madrid's title thing. That was definitely devastating. On Tuesday, Everton got a 2-0 win against Burnley, which was amazing. We got, finally, after 3 months, Everton win at home. Then, and even sweeter that day, was Liverpool losing 2-1 to Wolves. They lose to freaking Wolves. Oh man, what a time to be a toffee, that's for sure. Barcelona, Atletico Madrid's going to be in the Copa del Rey final, and they'll be joining alongside Real Sociedad. Wednesday was quite a tragic time, though. Was quite interesting as well. And then in England, Tottenham lost to Crystal Palace, which was extremely embarrassing because here's the thing about Tottenham. You know they're just actually a loss away and Forest and West Ham win. Guess who's going to be in the 18th spot in relegation? Tottenham. Yes, Spurs in relegation. Can you even imagine if Spurs even got relegated this year? I mean, this is one of the big 6 in the Premier League getting relegated. This is a massive deal, and they just got the new stadium built a couple of years ago. That would be humiliating if that were to happen. I can't even imagine how humiliating that's going to be for Spurs fans. And of course, Arsenal are on top of the league. So Arsenal win the league, Spurs go down. Oh boy, I would not want to be a Spurs fan right now. Hey, Mr. TPHI, good to see you. I hope you're doing well, my dear. We're flying in Italy today. We're heading our way over to Pisa, of course. we're doing our Italian flight. We're talking about the Derby della Madonna, the classic Milan derby between AC and Inter, of course. But no, we're currently recapping things for a bit. Between AC and Inter, of course. But yeah, it is rough to be a Tottenham fan right now, and I know a few of them in the community. Most notably, London Controller. He's not happy about it. That would be humiliating. Imagine Tottenham playing the championship. You know, especially be more embarrassing if somehow Millwall mixed up or Wrexham. That would be. But hey, that's the cruel nature of mismanagement can do to a club. Also, in addition to this as well, the USL season finally starts. Yay! Louisville season going to finally start their season tonight. Assuming there's no lockout, of course. There's a whole issue with the USL, obviously. Because they're about having a strike looming. But we're going to have our game tonight. Louisville City, Lexington SC, the first game of the year. The Commonwealth Cup. Oh, this is going to be good. It's 7:30. I'm looking forward to finally getting my local club to cheer for. I probably should have grabbed my shirt and scarf for this one. But oh well, I mean, I was not going to pick Louisville City Lexington over the Milan derby. I would be a fool. So, pretty big stuff going on here. We're going to continue to Pisa, of course. Now, a bit about Pisa, obviously, and about it, of course. Pisa is one of the more interesting cities here. In Tuscany, of course. Of course, everyone knows the Leaning Tower, obviously. It's also home to the University of Pisa, dating back to the 12th century. It's one of the oldest universities in Europe. Its population is only 98,000. And I will be visiting here too. I will also be heading to Pisa as well. But the interesting thing about the Tower of Pisa, actually, it's actually a freestanding tower of Pisa Cathedral, and it's actually got a 4-degree lean due to an unstable foundation. And it's one of the most visited attractions in the world, receiving 5 million visitors a year. And the reason the lean even happened is because the soft ground could not support the structure's weight, and it's worsened through the construction to the 14th century. Of course, the tilt once reached up to 5 degrees, but thanks to remedial work, the structure was stabilized to around 3.97 degrees. And unbelievably, this building survived 4 strong earthquakes since 1280. And the reason was, ironically, the tower withstood due to the dynamic soil-structure interaction. So ironically, this thing actually survived earthquakes that other buildings couldn't. But really cool though, the Tower of Pisa, really neat. Oh, that's awesome news, Typhon. That's amazing. I actually saw it in another chat, but this is awesome. Her sister and husband giving me flight sim. All that is off there. No worries about your PC and stuff. You know, I have a pretty powerful PC and I run through the middle settings. You don't need to run Ultra. I actually run my sim on medium settings as well because if I go higher, I try to keep the temperatures at a good, pretty reasonable because I do it all day. So try to keep these temperatures at pretty reasonable levels. But this is still awesome though. I cannot wait to see you, Typhon, in the flight sim. I can't wait. That is super cool. I'm so excited for you. I can't wait to see you in Sky with me. I'm interested to see what kind of planes you're gonna get and all that, and find out what type of plane. General aviation. You might fly the airliners. I'll let you be the one to decide that. But that's amazing, Typhon. I couldn't be happier. Oh, nice story, Dev. Lots of selfies in front of the Pisa Tower. A lot of people try to prop it up in their photos. No, don't be surprised. Oh, nice. General aviation? Yes, GA, of course. You can't go wrong with general aviation. I do a lot of airliner stuff, but that's mainly off-stream. Who knows? I might do an airliner stuff with Firefly Air. Do some Firefly Air streams and do some flying out of our hubs. That might be, if I ever do airliners again, just do it out of Firefly Air with their virtual airline and fly out of our hubs. Or fly in and out of our hubs, or fly to some new destinations. Like, if I ever did it again, it'd be like Dallas, Memphis to Pittsburgh. Something like that. But yeah, I would like to do some of that. Okay, cool. Typhon. No worries. But yeah, that's still awesome. So there it is, guys. We're about to arrive into Pisa, our first stop of the day. Here in beautiful Italy, of course. So here it is, guys. Pisa. And yes, we guys can see the lean tower ahead of us. That's not hard to miss. So. Now, they do have their own football club, Pisa SC, dating back to 1909. They're also known as the Nerazzurri, but their other nickname I want to call them is Il Torri, the Towers. And they just got promoted from last year. They got second in Serie B last year, and they're now promoted for Pisa. Unfortunately, this year though, Pisa FC was not doing very well this year. Sadly for Pisa SC, they're not doing very well this year. Of course, Pisa right now are actually in the bottom of Serie A. Actually, second to last with Verona, only 15 points. What a rough year for Pisa. I definitely feel for their fans. Like, this was not a season they were wanting, especially considering the other two Verona clubs are doing better than them. Cremonese was at 17th. They're barely on relegation. And Sassuolo was a bit of a big surprise this year. Sassuolo is actually 9th in Serie A with 38 points, which is pretty unexpectedly. Oh, it's not hard to miss. It's a notable tower. It's one of the tallest buildings in the city. It's not hard to miss. It's right here. I can see it. Or not hard to see. It's hard to miss. It's not hard to see the tower. I can see from here. I need to land. Of course, Typhon, you did miss some stuff while you were gone. For one, Murphy still can't drive. He had a couple of wrecks and stuff during the truck sim stream. He can't drive. Murphy also can't land because he had a really terrible landing yesterday in Vancouver. He thought he could land, but he went go around, then landed really hard. I guess the only thing Murphy's good at is probably crashing into things. Oh, Murph. Love him. He's always been an OG. In the community, of course, Murphy will be back Friday. Later today, he'll be from Page over to Kilo Delta Tango Alpha. He'll be doing some flights across the mountains and stuff. Should be a lot of fun, of course. And then Alison Johnson's going to be back tomorrow, of course. So check out Allie, give her a shout out. Allie will be back for another recreation from Vagar over to Echo Golf Papa Oscar, Stornoway, and then to Plockton in Scotland. Another really big flight for Jennifer Murray and her crew as well. So I can't watch them all, I know. But I just tell you, he can't drive, he can't fly, he just crash. So we'll be here for a little bit. If you guys want to join on in, here's our server. If you guys are interested in wanting to join on in. And here's our route, and here's our flight. Also, if you guys want to join in my Discord, I do have a Discord if you guys are interested. Let me update the link. Here's my Discord. If any of you guys want to join on in with my Discord and keep track of my streams, of course, we'll be here as well. So, some of the other things I'll be doing this weekend, of course, I'm also planning, of course, after watching my local club, Louisville City. I gotta also watch a couple other games this weekend. Of course, I'm gonna watch. I gotta watch, of course, on Saturday. It's going to be. I'm also going to watch Espanyol Monday, so that's going to be the weekend, obviously. Of course, I'm probably going to watch the Italian Derby, a little bit of that, of the Milan Derby. So as for next week's game day flights, this is going to be interesting because next week is going to be a very interesting one for the game day stuff. This one's going to be interesting. I might do Leverkusen versus Munich. There's also Botafogo versus Flamengo. And actually, I think we might do that. I think we're going to head back to Brazil for Botafogo Flamengo. The Clásico de Rivadavia. That's where I think we're going to go. We're going to head back to Brazil. But yeah, that would be a big one though. Botafogo versus that two of the big clubs in Brazil. Very big club, very historic, of course. So I think that might be the one to do. Though I'll also have interest in Bayern Munich. So should be interesting as well which one I pick. Either Botafogo Flamengo or we pick Bayern Munich and Bayer Leverkusen. Who knows? I might pick Bayern Munich or something. I don't know. But I know March 20th is going to be interesting because we actually got Sunderland and Newcastle United. I'm saving Real Madrid for El Clasico. So try to save them up, of course. So we'll do that then. So we'll get ready to get flying, of course. We're going to be heading over to Genoa. So let's go ahead and get this back in the air. Also, this weekend will be another of our National Park series, of course. We'll be back in the national parks. And our next national park is going to be Everglades. And we're not going to take a traditional bushcraft this time. We're going to take a float plane. What? Viper is taking a float plane? Yes, we're taking floats for this one. Our first float plane flight of the entire thing. So here it is, guys. Pizza. We're about to fly over. But yeah, I definitely enjoy your hub in Genoa, by the way. I definitely like it more now. It's definitely a very interesting airport. My only complaint with Genoa is when you do ILS into Genoa, it kind of is offset wide slope, but that's just a minor nitpick. It's a neat little hub, and it's also a little close to Zurich. But I mean, those are just small nitpicks. So here it is, guys, to our right. This is the Leaning Tower of Pisa. There's also the Cathedral of Pisa as well. So there it is. So there she is, the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And no, it's not Leaning Tower Pizza. It's Pisa. So yes, before you have a smarter comment. So there you go. Leaning Tower. Look at that. And yes, it's leaning. Oh, nice. You've been there. That's fantastic, Sir Dev. Can't wait to go. Can't wait to go in April. So here we go. So now we're going to talk more about Inter Milan. Circle. Yep. Here we go, guys. So as we're going to climb up, of course, head to into Inter. Let's talk a bit more about Inter Milan, of course. The colors and badge of Inter Milan are definitely, it's very identifiable because of its famous blue and black. One of the founders of Inter, a painter named Giorgio Giugiani, was designed for the first Inter logo here in 1908. And it incorporated designs of FCIM, a series of circles that form the badge of the club, and the basic elements have remained constant even as finer details have been modified over the years. The original crest was reduced in size in 1999. Of course, then the logo was returned to its pre-1999-2000 era, as well as gained a modern look. And of course, the most significant rebranding was the modern day one that was introduced in 2021, which was the new crest with just IM. So definitely pretty cool. Now the team colors, of course, is the famous black, blue and black, aka the Nerazzurri. And according to the tradition, the colors were adopted to represent the national sky. In fact, the club was established on the March 9th at 2330. Moreover, blue was chosen by Giorgio Giugiani because he considered it to be the opposite color of red that was worn by their rivals, AC Milan. Of course, animals are often used to represent Italian clubs in Italy, and for them, they chose the grass snake, aka the Biscione. And the snake is a symbol for the city of Milan, often appearing in heraldry as a cool viper with a man in its jaws. And it was present on the coat of arms of the House of Sforza, who ruled Italy during the during the Renaissance period. So as a result, the snake has a long history of Inter Milan, and as a result, the snake has a rich history. So that's why a snake is used to identify Inter Milan, of course. So definitely pretty cool for Inter. Another thing for Inter Milan, and both of them and AC both played in the same stadium, so we only have one side for each stadium because of this one. Known as the San Siro, it's the Stadio Giuseppe Meazza, known as the San Siro, is located in the San Siro district of Milan, nicknamed the La Scala di Calcio, for La Scala of football, which is the opera house. Its seating capacity of 75,000 makes it the largest stadium in Italy and among Europe's largest, and it's home to Milan's two clubs, AC and Inter. It was actually renamed in 1980 after Giuseppe Meazza, the two-time World Cup winner who played for Inter in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. This place is a UEFA Category 4 stadium. It's hosted multiple games from the 1934 FIFA World Cup in Italy, the opening 6 games of the 1990 FIFA World Cup, 3 games of the UEFA Euro 1980, and 4 European Cup finals in 1965, 1970, 2001, and 2016. It even also hosted the opening Olympics of the 2026 Winter Olympics. This stadium is the big cathedral of Italian football is San Siro. And if you ever get a chance as a football fan, you definitely want to visit it once. However, this stadium is not going to last forever because AC and Inter have actually bought the territory and they're going to build a brand new stadium. And it will be a brand new 71,000. That'll cost $1.25 billion. Caused it to become now the property of both clubs. Which is something, which I know it's sad for a lot of older fans to see it go, but AC and Inter both needed the being able to invest in their own stadium and all that is a big deal nowadays. So, but this is a very historic ground. It's hosted so many matches of football. It's also a concert venue. Tons of concerts have been held at the San Siro, and it's among the most attended stadiums in Europe. Very big and very important stadium. We'll be checking out here on the trip. Of course, there are a lot of supporters of Inter, and Inter is one of the most supported clubs in all of Italy. And they're among the most supported clubs in the country, second only to Juventus. In the early years, the Inter fans were mainly working middle class, while AC Milan fans were working class. Of course, the traditional ultras of Inter are Boys Sun, which are one of the oldest Italian ultra groups founded in 1969. Very interestingly enough, of course, they mainly gather into the Curva Nord, the North Curve of San Siro, and it's been synonymous with their diehard supporters who unfurl banners and wave flags in support of their team. As well. And of course, they have several rivalries. Inter has had several of them. Of course, the Della Madonna is the big one. However, they also have a very hated rivalry with Juventus, and Inter fans absolutely despise Juventus. I'm not kidding. Um, they absolutely despise Juventus. And it's the derby called Derby d'Italia, the Derby of Italy. And this one's another hated matchup. And trust me, we'll get to the Derby d'Italia in a future stream. Maybe not. Maybe next season we'll definitely talk about the Derby d'Italia. And originally, up to 2006, they were both the only clubs that ever been relegated from Italy. However, with the Calciopolo scandal, Juventus got relegated, and as a result, Juventus and Inter absolutely hate each other. In fact, the Calciopolo has only made this rivalry even more bitter, if anything. as well. They also have formed other rivalries too. Inter's also formed rivalries with Roma, um, as well as Atalanta and Napoli. So very important stuff about Inter, of course. Definitely have some very bitter, passionate rivalries, of course. Now for their club honors, you can see their club honors. There are 20 Serie A titles. There are 9 Coppa Italias in there, including their most recent Coppa Italia in 2022. Yes, they have 2 stars ahead of their Scudetti. 8 Super Cups. There are 3 Champions Leagues, 3 UEFA Cups, 2 Intercontinental Cups, and a FIFA Club World Cup. Inter Milan are definitely one of Italy's most historic and proud clubs. Now for their legendary talent, and oh boy, there's a lot of them to pick from Inter, of course. They're Italy's only non-relegated club. But I mainly picked those players for their role in the Inter Milan Hall of Fame. And they actually have a Hall of Fame, and I picked the players from there because that's some of their greatest talents came from the Hall of Fame, making this a lot more easily. So for Inter Milan, the greatest player here is Giacinto Fischetti. He is one of their greatest players ever, 629 appearances. Fischetti also served as not just a left back for Inter, he also served as his chairman of Inter from 2004 to 2006. Played 634 games for the club, scoring 75 goals, and he was part of the Grande Inter team that won 4 Serie A titles, a Coppa Italia, 2 European Cups, and 2 Intercontinental Cups. And he was placed second for the Ballon d'Or. And he was not just a great player for Inter, he was also very much a star for the Italian national team, including playing for 3 FIFA World Cups, as well as UEFA European champion as well. And he's one of the first prominent attacking fullbacks in European football, and one of the very best to ever play at that position. Absolute stud of a player at Inter. Actually, let me turn. I'm going to turn left here. We're going to fly around the coast, actually. I've changed, instead of going through La Spezia, we're mainly going to fly around the coast. So we're mainly going to fly around the Cinque Terre, which is the Italian coast. All those towns here, but he was definitely one of the great fullbacks of his position as well. Then, of course, the greatest modern player in the history of Inter and their all-time assistant leader and one of the greatest players of Italian football history, Javier Zanetti. This dude is an absolute goat of the club, one of the greatest. He played for over 615 domestic matches at Inter. He played nearly for his entire career at Inter Milan, known for his versatility, adeptness, and could play both fullback, wingback, or even as a midfielder. He was a huge piece of their treble-winning season in 2009-2010, and he is the foreign player with the most appearances in Serie A, and he's played over 1,115 official games in his entire career, which is insanely impressive because that actually puts him is 1,115. That puts him 16th all time in most games appeared. The player with the most competitive appearances ever was Fabio. He has played the most. Which is pretty crazy to think about. But Zanetti's an absolute beast. He's also And of course, he's won the most trophies at the club. He's won 16 of them. And of course, he's such a beloved player for Inter. His number 4 is retired. No one else can ever wear his number 4. He's definitely one of Inter's all-time great talents. Then you have their all-time leading goal scoring machine of Giuseppe Meazza. He's Inter's goal scoring king. He scored 284 goals in 408 games for the club, 3 Serie A titles in a Coppa Italia, and he's one of the only 4-time players to have won 2 World Cups as well. Meazza, and in fact, he's the namesake of the San Siro. He's the namesake, and for a very good reason. One of the greatest Italian strikers in the history of the sport, and one of the best players of the 20th century. Meazza absolutely is an absolute legend. He also played for both Milan clubs and Juventus too. Absolute legend. Then after that, of course, Giuseppe Bergomi. One of the best defenders of all time. He also played for one club. He played at Inter Milan for his entire career at Inter. And he's part of FIFA's 100, and he's the longtime captain of the club. And he's definitely an amazing defender, and he's a big piece of Inter Milan's success for the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And helped them win several UEFA Cups as well. But absolute legend, of course, and he's not just, he's also played for the Italian team a lot too. And known for his extreme versatility on defense. Then, of course, after that, another star player is actually the Brazilian goal scorer, Ronaldo. Yes, Ronaldo Nazário. Now, of course, I know a lot of younger fans don't realize it, but he, at one point during his peak, was one of the most talented individuals in the sport's history. He was a multifunctional striker who brought new dimension to strikers and has influenced so many of them. And he truly, however, became a true star at Inter. And this is where he was at his peak, was Inter Milan. He had won his Ballon d'Or during his time at Inter. Sadly, though, injuries really hampered what he could have done. Imagine if he never suffered all those injury problems and remained healthy. He would have absolutely had dominated at Inter Milan. Holy heck, he's just different. Like, his talent and all that is unbelievable. Then you have Walter Zenga. He is Inter's beloved goalkeeper from 1982 to 1994. And he is one of the best goalkeepers of all time. And he played for pretty much his entire career at Inter, with a handful of other teams like Sampdoria, Padova, and into his career in the MLS at New England Revolution. But he was especially a star for Inter. He's their great goalkeeper. Then we have Sandro Mazzola. Of course, we talked about Sandro, the golden boy himself. One of the greatest Italian players, known for his speed, work rate, creativity, technical skills, and eye on the goal. He came close to winning the Ballon d'Or, but he is a one-club man. Spent 17 seasons, all 17 of the seasons at Inter. He won them 4 Serie A titles, 2 European Cups, and more, and he was even a top scorer as well. He's definitely built an incredible legacy at Inter Milan. Then you also have Christian Vieri. Vieri is another one of their great goal-scoring talents. Christian Vieri was definitely a very successful striker, and his peak was at Inter, becoming one of the great talents during his time at Inter Milan. And there are plenty more legends, but yes, AC Milan, Inter Milan, so many incredible talents of Italian football. Yeah, Italian football was peak in the 90s. That's why you see so many players from the 1990s represented here. So now we're flying around the Italian coast. So this here is the Cinque Terre. This is the Italian coast, by the way. So right here is the beautiful Italian coast. So we're going to keep us around the coastline. So Cinque Terre is here. So they're basically flying on the beautiful Italian coast. Of course, a lot of people love heading this area. Of course. Absolutely gorgeous though. And the reason why this is such a popular place for tourism is because, I mean, the beautiful towns, of course, that are built on top of the cliffs. I mean, you have some absolutely picturesque cities all over the place. But yeah, it's UNESCO World Heritage Site, absolutely just gorgeous. Beautiful area, of course. Well, so yeah, there's Cinque Terre. So we're gonna head this way over to. We're gonna head all the way to Genoa, of course. Yeah, beautiful cities though. So many of the really cool ones here. Ah, Miss P TBHI, hello. Let me add you in there, TBHI. So, very excited for a lot of this stuff going on here. In the community, of course, there's so many really cool stuff. So, beautiful stuff going on here. We'll start in AC Milan pretty quickly. We'll get briefly over it once we get closer, but I'm going to talk a little bit about AC Milan and go ahead and cover them for a bit. So the other side of the Milan Derby is AC Milan. Inter's most hated rival, of course, is AC Milan. So AC Milan is actually the original club here, dating back to December 18th, 1899. They played the San Siro since 1926. Of course, Milan has spent basically its entire history up here, with exceptions of 2 different seasons in the 1980s. However, the standout period, of course, was in the 80s and 90s, thanks to Silvio Berlusconi's tenure as Milan president. Yes, that's right, that's Silvio Berlusconi. Yes, that one, who was once the Prime Minister of Italy. He also served not just as Italy's Prime Minister, he also served as AC Milan. So yes, he owned both AC Milan and became the Prime Minister of Italy. Yes, that guy. And yes, the same guy who had all these controversies between media control and all those kinds. But AC Milan was their most dominant during the 80s, where they won 29 trophies in that tenure, including Serie A and Champions Leagues. And in 1992, their peak, they became the first team to win Serie A without losing a single game all year. They were absolutely dominant, of course, and had multiple Ballon d'Or winners, and 3 of their club at one point even ranked in the top 3 of the Ballon d'Or in 1988, which was unprecedented, of course. Milan are one of the most successful clubs in the world in terms of trophies won. Domestically, 19 league titles, 5 Coppa Italias, 8 Italian Super Cups. Internationally, though, they are the most successful club in Italy by a wide margin. 7 Champions Leagues, 5 UEFA Super Cups, 2 UEFA Cup Winners' Cup, 2 Latin Cups, 3 Intercontinental Cups, and a Club Cup title. And they're one of the most biggest and supported clubs in Italy. This is an absolute juggernaut of a club. So definitely very important, though. We'll talk more about AC Milan in a bit. But before all this, though, there is another club I actually want to talk about here when we go to Genoa. And a little bit about Genoa as we head over to the city, of course. Our next stop is in Genoa, one of this Italy's 6th largest city. It's the capital of Liguria. 565,000 people live in the city's administrative limits. However, one of the most interesting things is that Genoa is one of the most historic cities in the country. It is the busiest port in Italy and in the Mediterranean Sea. It's the busiest port in the Mediterranean. And it was, at one point, one of the capital of the most powerful maritime republics for over 7 centuries, from the 11th century to 1797, becoming one of the largest naval powers on the continent. And as a result, it became an extremely wealthy city for trade and commerce. Genoa has is also home to the oldest state deposit bank in the world, the Bank of St. George. And the Old Town of Genoa is one of the largest and most densely populated in Europe, and it features so many historic landmarks. The University of Genoa, and it's the birthplace of so many famous people. Most notably, Guglielmo Imbriaco, the Genoese merchant who came during the Crusade. Christopher Columbus was born here. Yes, the one who sailed to the New World, Christopher Columbus. Andrea Doria, Giuseppe Mazzani, who helped spearhead Italian unification, and Grimaldo Canella, who founded the House of Grimaldi. But Genoa has such rich history, of course. It's one of the Italian cities I actually wanted to visit the most. Is Genoa. It's such a beautiful historic city. There's so many really great sites in the city. Sadly, for some reason, this city is not in the sim. It should absolutely be photogrammetry. It's a beautiful city. But Genoa's got rich culture with arts. But in terms of sports, of course, Genoa actually has 2 football clubs in the city. Genoa CFC and UC Sampdoria. The former, however, is the one I really want to talk about. Genoa CFC is actually Italy's oldest club. Dating back to 1893, they're one of the oldest. They're the oldest club in Italy and one of the most historic. They've won the league championship 9 times, though their last title hasn't been done in over a century. And they also only won 1 Italian Cup in their honor, and that was in 1936-37. Yeah, the final, of course, they played it at Florence, so I might do the Italian Cup or something like that for Genoa, but really historic club. Genoa has had a long history. They played the Stadio Luigi Ferrari since 1911, and of course their rivalry is with Sampdoria was known as the Derby della Laterna. And they're part of the Club of Pioneers, representing some of the oldest football clubs, along with Sheffield FC and Recreo de Huelva, the oldest clubs in England and Spain, respectively. But definitely a very important club in Europe. Sadly, I know they haven't been as relevant, but historically they will always be an important club. So Genoa, a very important club and a very important um, in the history of stuff too. So we'll just turn left here very soon and we'll make our way down to Genoa. So, so yeah, Jeff is a beautiful city though. I mean, just look at that. This is just gorgeous. So, and also think too about Genoa FC, of course. They actually have a little museum. Um, which is the Museum of Genoa Cricket and Football Club, a little museum dedicated to Genoa, which is really cool. Yeah, look at the beautiful communities here. Rapallo. Look at that. That's pretty. So many really pretty areas here, of course. So now we're about to finally enter into Genoa very soon. So we're going to head on forward, of course, through all this. So, of course, one of the really great things about Genoa as well, of course, some of the twin cities, there are several twin cities of Genoa. They include Columbus, United States. I mean, makes sense, Christopher Columbus is from Genoa. Marseille, France. I mean, both huge ports in their countries. Mauritia, Spain. Rijeka, Croatia. Ryazan, Russia. And Odessa, Ukraine. So we're going to continue on straight into the beautiful city of Genoa. But look at all these incredible cities on the hillside. So, beautiful stuff. So I'll be ready to get the flight plan ready for next week, of course. I think it's going to be Bayern Munich versus Leverkusen. So it'll be from Dusseldorf over to Munich. So we're going to go. So here's Genoa, everyone. So yeah, I think we're going to do Leverkusen versus Munich next week. So we'll be doing that one. So here's, guys, Genoa. And there's the Genoa Stadium. Unfortunately, there's no photo grammetry here, sadly. So here is the beautiful city of Genoa. Three more. Here we go, Genoa. Beautiful link. So we'll stop right here for just about a minute or two as we get ready for the second and last leg. Our last leg of the trip into Milan, of course. So we'll be staying here for a bit and wait till we get going. We'll talk about AC Milan once we get into our next stop. So we're going to go ahead and prepare for the last leg up to Milan and Nate. So we're going to go ahead and $4,500. So we're going to go ahead. So we're going to climb up to... We're going to climb up to 4,500 feet. So we're just going to climb. Hey, good to see you, Kev. I hope you're doing well, my dude. We're heading to Milan, of course. We started all the way back in Bologna. We were doing the Derby della Madonnina. So we went from Bologna, Florence, Pisa, through the Cinque Terre into Genoa, and now we're going to enter into Milan. We're going to have to climb up through these, through the hills, of course. Just slowly coming up. Beautiful scenery though this afternoon, of course. So here's a shout out for you, my dude. You stream here on Twitch. So here we go. We're going to climb up. So we're going to go a little bit less. We're going to lower it down for a bit so we can pick up some speed again. I'm doing very well too. It appears you're not at work. It doesn't appear you're at work. Yeah, my autism means I can't really find work, so I'm here at home. No worries at work. It's understandable. So we're going to go ahead and make our way. So AC Milan, of course, we're going to go to the color badge. So of course we all know AC Milan wear the red and black, the Rossoneri. And they've been chosen by its founder, Herbert Kilpin, to represent the player's fiery ardor, and which is red, and the opponent's fear to challenge them in black. And their widely used nickname, the Rossoneri, literally means red and blacks in Italian. Another nickname derived from the club's colors is the Devil. And the image of a red devil was used as the Milan's logo at one point. As customary in Italian football, the star above the logo is awarded to the club after winning 10 league titles, and thus they have one in 1979. The official Milan logos always displayed the flag of Milan, which is originally the flag of St. Ambrose, next to red and black stripes. And the modern badge used today represents the club colors and the flag of the Comune di Milano, the Milan community, with the acronym ACM on the top and the foundation at the bottom. For what concerns the badge worn on match kits from the origins 1940s, it was the Milan flag. But the badge did make a definitive appearance in 1995-1996. It still has not been changed. Now, since its foundation, AC Milan home kit has always consisted of red and black striped shirts combined with white shorts and black socks. Over the course of the decade, only cyclical changes dictated the fashion of the time. However, in the first decade, their first kit was a simple silk shirt by thin stripes with this badge of Milan sewn into it. Then the stripes were larger in the 1910s, which would be unchanged to the 50s. The 60s returned back to the thin stripes that would last until 1985. And then they changed back to middle size, which is nowadays. So yeah, it's always been red and black with stripes, red and black striped kits, which has always been a thing for AC Milan for years. Of course, we all know they play in the San Siro. I know I'm sure you don't worry too much about autism and work. I know I would like to work too. It's just I'm not. I would like to work too. I have a college degree. I don't want to waste the about the dollars of my college degree. I would love to work and do some stuff. It's just the job market right now is not so great with people with autism, and I wouldn't mind working too. I'm glad to be here streaming to all of you guys. It's just I know it's difficult. That's just honest truth. But enough with moaning. I want to talk about the topic I want to talk about. Hey, Red Bear, good to see you. We're heading to Milan for the Derby della Madonna today on our game day flights. We're going to enter into AC Milan. Their supporters, they have some of the strongest supporters of any Italian club. They're the most popular team in Italy, of course. A lot of them was historically worked by the working class. Caschiavid, which means screwdrivers in the Milan dialect. While Inter was more of the proper middle class. The ultra groups in all Italian football originated in Milan, the Fossa di Leone, and currently the main ultras are the Brigante Rossoneri. However, Milan ultras never really had any particular political preference. And of course, according to a study in 2010, Milan is the most supported Italian club in Europe and 7th overall with over 18 million fans. And they had the 13th highest average attendance in in European football clubs during 2019, which is pretty crazy to think about. How many supporters they have. They have so many of them. Yeah, it definitely is tough. Exactly. I don't want to talk about it too much, but I do appreciate your support, Kev. I'm not letting that dictate who I am. I write about it too. AC Milan has had several club rivalries over the years. Of course, Inter Milan is their big one, and we talked all about the history and stuff earlier on. But AC and Inter been around since 1908. And this has been a very passionate inter-city derby, definitely the biggest city derby in Italian football. That being said, however, outside of their inter-city rival, Juventus is also a huge rival. And again, both Milan clubs hate Juventus. It makes sense considering Juventus is their greatest, is of course the two most successful clubs in Italian football. And their challenge confronts also the two clubs of the greatest basin supporters in all of Italian football and all that. And they've always been fighting for around the top position of Italy. Big one being the 1950s, of course, as Serie A champs. In the 1990s as well, have been dominated the league, winning 8 out of the 10 titles in the 90s. In the 2000s, of course. Their last rivalry is something for the old school ones that have been around since the 20s. Genoa, actually. At the dawn of the 20th century, Genoa and AC Milan were huge rivals. Of course, but Genoa and AC have a rich heritage, of course. They also have major rivals with Fiorentina and Florence, Atalanta and Bergamo, and Napoli. Huge rivals, of course, but definitely the big rivalries, Inter, Juventus, Genoa, is their three most historic rivals. Of course, with a club as famous as AC Milan, there have been an entire number of films dedicated to the Rossoneri. One of this is Sunday Heroes, that was directed by Mario Cameri in 1953, with the main plot being a fictional football match between the Rossoneri and the club bringing on relegation. And many times film appear, which is the coach and several of the famous players of the Milan at the time. All actually were in the film. And Milan, as a fan base, has some of the most popular players and appeared in many comedy movies as well. um, Equazinal, Veramente, really as a super cool, Chapter 2, which did include any players in Tifosi, are some of the more well-known Italian films. Um, and of course, they also have their own club magazine, Forza Milan, which has been their main magazine for over half a century. In terms of club honors, where do we even begin with the club honors? Um, hey, we're Black Lord Art. The day's going well, my dude. We're about to enter Milan, of course. We're just talking about nearly the end of the slide, but AC Milan, look at their honors. I mean, 19 league titles, 2 Serie B, 5 Italian Cups, 8 Supercoppa Italia, and then look at all the European trophies. The second most Champions League trophies with 7 of them. They're only Real Madrid have won more Champions League trophies than AC Milan does. They've also won 2 European Cup Winners' Cup, 5 UEFA Super Cups. They won 2 Latin Cups, which is a record, and they also won the Intercontinental 3 times as well in a Club World Cup. But AC Milan, absolutely a juggernaut of a football club. An absolute juggernaut of a club, and there's no question they have 2 of the most famous now, of course, finally, of course, is going to be the AC Milan players. And oh boy, where do we even begin with AC Milan legends? But guys, if there had to be one AC Milan star and one player to define this club, there could only be one guy that defines AC Milan. Paolo Maldini, one of the greatest defender in football history. He is a goat. Now, anyone that has never heard of him is living under a rock. But this dude and he is the definition of a one-club man. He was born in Milan. He played his youth career at AC Milan from 1978 to 1984. Then he played from 1984 to 2009 at AC Milan. Over 2 decades, 25 seasons in AC Milan, and retired at 41 years old. The dude won 26 trophies with the club, 5 Champions Leagues, 7 Serie A titles, a Coppa Italia, 5 UEFA Super Cups, a Club World Cup, and 2 Intercontinental Cups. He won all of those at AC Milan. He never left the club. He also held the most record for appearances at the time with 647. Only Buffon had more appearances. But Maldini, absolute legend of the game. He also capped 126 appearances for the Italian national team as well. He even came close to winning the Ballon d'Or twice in 1994, 2003, and was almost Player of the Year. But the dude is such an icon that his number 3 is retired. No one else is ever touching that number, and I don't think anyone even deserves to touch that number. He is an absolute GOAT. He's one of the greatest players ever. Period. I'm not kidding. He's that good. Franco Baresi, another legendary player who played 719 appearances total with the club. Maldini had 902 total appearances, but Baresi, the dude was also another legend. He also played alongside Maldini too. Him and Maldini absolutely formed a great duo. And became one of the greatest defenders of all time. And he was once one of the top 20 in the 100 greatest players of the 20th century, and became a major piece of AC Milan as well. And he was actually the younger brother of Giuseppe Baresi, who actually spent with Inter Milan. But he's definitely another amazing talent for AC Milan, and he also spent his entire career at AC Milan, just like Maldini has, and became a longtime teammate. So absolutely incredible player as well, an incredible talent. Then you have Gunnar Nordahl, who's actually their all-time leading scorer and one of the greatest Swedish players of all time. Gunnar Nordahl, one of Sweden's AC Milan's all-time record goal scorer. And he also held the record for the most goals for a single club in Italian football history before being surpassed by Francesco Totti of AS Roma. But he's one of the greatest Swedish players of all time, and he won the Scudetto twice, and he won 5 top scorer awards, more than any other player in the history of Italian football. Absolutely dominant goal scoring machine for AC. Then you have the greatest Ukrainian player of all time, Andriy Shevchenko, the greatest Ukrainian player of all time. Started Dynamo Kiev, but he truly broke out with AC Milan and became a dominant force for the club. And yes, he even won a Ballon d'Or. He also received a Ballon d'Or in 2004, which is absolutely incredible for Ukrainian talent. And the second greatest goal scorer in the history of AC Milan. So, absolute legend, an incredible talent known for his fast, hardworking, energetic, and well-rounded play style. It's absolute GOAT of Ukrainian football. I guess my throttle's a little high. Thank you, Kev. Sorry about that. I was busy reading. I didn't mean to do it, so I forget sometimes. I do. One very big thing though about Shevchenko. Then we have Gianni Rivera, another legendary talent. Italy's golden boy Gianni Rivera was a big part of the AC Milan side of the 1960s and was a big golden boy for both domestically and Europe, helping them win 3 Serie A titles, 2 Europe Champions Leagues, and several other trophies, and was the team's captain for 12 seasons. And he was also a star for the Italian national team and took place in 4 World Cups, including scoring the decisive goal in the 1970 World Cup semifinal against West Germany, in what was once held as the game of the century. Unfortunately, though, he lost to Brazil, which, if you guys all aware about Brazil, they are the most successful team of the World Cup. And Gianni Rivera was known for his elegance, efficient, and creative playmaker with an eye for the goal. And some people even consider him to be Italy's greatest ever player. And he even won a Ballon d'Or in 1969. Absolute talented player. Of course, there's plenty of other ones too. Plenty of incredible talents over the years. Then, of course, you have Jose Attafini. Also from Brazil, and he was a big part of AC Milan in the 60s. He also played for Napoli and Juventus, but he was extremely proficient goal scorer and one of the great talents AC Milan has ever had, thanks to his eye for the goal, quick, skillful, and powerful shot. As well. And he definitely is a legendary player for AC Milan as well. Then, of course, some other talents as well. We have Marco van Basten, which we actually talked about him a little bit earlier in the series. But anyone that's heard about Marco van Basten, this was where Marco was truly at his most dominant. And while I did talk for Ajax, I want to mention his time at AC Milan too. We all know he's a great ball control, attack intelligence, impeccable heading skills, and spectacular strikes. And of course, he was a 3-time Ballon d'Or winner, all at AC Milan. And he was at his peak in AC Milan, where he won 3 Ballon d'Ors and was part of the dominant squad that also had Frank Rijkaard, Drew Gullit, and Paolo Maldini. And he became an absolutely insane player. Unfortunately, Marco van Basten retired far too young at only 20 years old, and that was due to his troublesome ankle injury. And as a result, he had to retire a lot earlier, but he was such an absolute, insanely freakish talent. Incredible, though. His prime was absolutely insane. Then you have Zlatan Ibrahimovic. You guys probably heard about him, the famous Swedish striker Zlatan, for his acrobatic strengths, technique, ball control, and physicality. And he scored over 570 career goals in his time in professional football. but I put him as AC Milan's legend because he had 3 different stints at the club, and in fact, he spent more time at AC Milan than any other of his teams. And he's also Sweden's all-time leading goal scorer for Sweden. So, huge career, of course. He's in fact, here's one more fun thing about Zlatan. He's also one of the few people who have played for both Milan teams, of both Inter and AC, and played at Juventus. But Zlatan definitely a very talented player as well. And of course, and then you also have the Brazilian midfielder Kaká, who was a big part of their teams during the 2000s. And one of the great Brazilian talents. And he was one of only 10 players ever to have won a World Cup, Champions League, and Ballon d'Or. And his peak was definitely one of AC Milan's great talents. Absolute incredible talent, and one thing he was most known for, of course, his midfield capability, was his ability to glide past opponents. His passing skills legendary, and he can even score too. All around a complete talent. So, and of course, many, many more. Yeah, warning lights. Sorry, it's tough because the plane propellers. Because this plane doesn't have like an auto propeller. Yeah, my apologies. So that completes AC at Inter Milan, and that completes the legs. So we're about 29 nautical miles until we enter into Milan, of course. We're about 29 nautical miles to our final destination. I think we see Milan in the distance. So that concludes the slides. So that's it. That is AC Milan, incredible club with a rich history. So AC, absolutely iconic club, of course. And both clubs also have their own websites too. Here's AC Milan, and here's Inter Milan. So here's their websites, of course. So let me post those here. I know, I appreciate it. That's something I do. It's something I always do a lot, is my work. I put a lot of work into all of it. It's something I'm proud of. So here's AC and Inter's website. So if you're interested in wanting to learn more about different clubs from their websites, here they are, of course. Many of them talk about their history, their Hall of Fame. So they got a lot of inductees, of course. So they got the most recent is 2024 with Marco Van Basten, Baresi, Inzaghi, and Andriy Shevchenko. But yeah, AC Milan just has such amazing talents on their club. I mean, the nice Inter AC Milan was just special. So many incredible talents. Like I'm an American fan, but learn more about this has given me a whole new respect for Italian football. Though that funny enough, though, Inter is not the team in Italy I supports. It's actually Fiorentina. The Violetas, the Violets. Who knows? I might be interested in buying one of the vintage jerseys, though, if they could fit the 3X. Oh, wait, none of them could fit 3X. What am I saying? But no worries. Like I said, I call it football because Italy's soccer, they call it football. It's out of respect. I try to respect the locals and all that, what they want. But like I said, but Italy has such great history and stuff too. Um, um, but I don't really follow Serie A very much because I mainly follow England, the Premier League, which makes sense for as an American. The English league is probably the easiest one to follow since everything's in English. And then the other one I follow is in Spain, La Liga. Is the two main European leagues I follow. I'll glance at the other leagues, but I think it's mainly those two. I grow to like La Liga a lot. Like it's very competitive and all that too. So yeah, but I wanted to give you guys all the help you can. Yeah, the rest of the world, only us weirdos play our hands. Yeah, exactly. The rest of. But here's the thing, though: is originally soccer was actually supposed to be the original name of it is soccer technically, but they changed the football around the matchup with the rest of the world in England. But in the United States, it's still soccer. So yeah. Oh yeah, I think the reason they call it American football is because American football used to have soccer-like rules that used to be like soccer. However, over time when they changed the rules, it would be more to rugby style rules. Um, but apparently the people of Harvard didn't want to change the name from American football to rugby, so that's why they call it American football. Yes, that's actually weird. I just realized that. Very very weird. But there we go. So we're about to enter to Milan. So Milan is a really great city to visit. It's one of the world's great cities. Milan is Italy's fashion capital of the world. 1.36 million. It's Italy's second most populous city, behind Rome. It is Italy's economic capital. Around 20% of the country's GDP is from the metro area of Milan. It's actually a very old city founded back in 590 by a Celtic tribe. It was conquered by the Romans in 222 BC into the city known as Mediolanum. And at one point, it even briefly served as the capital of the West Roman Empire. At the end of the 4th century, then of course the Duchy of Milan came around during the medieval period. It became one of the great forces of the Renaissance and is a major city of Italian enlightenment. Nowadays, it's known as a city for industry, finance, science, and more, but it's especially fashion that has dominated Milan. It is one of the global fashion capitals in the world and one of the world's most visited cities. Second in Italy after Rome, fifth in Europe, and 16th in the world. And its museum and art galleries feature some of the most important collections in the world, including those by Leonardo da Vinci. One of the famous art gallery that has one of Leonardo da Vinci's works was The Last Supper, and it was at the Church of Santa Maria del Grazie. We're going to be visiting, flying over that church soon. And fun fact, this church almost got destroyed in the Second World War. It was during a night bombing in 1943, an Allied air bomber hit the church in the convent, and much of it was destroyed. But however, miraculously, some of the walls survived, including the one that holds the Last Supper. So yes, the Last Supper nearly got destroyed in World War II, which is crazy, of course. But there are so many beautiful landmarks in the city, of course. But if you had to pick the most iconic landmark in the city, it has to be the Milan Cathedral. That was built back from 1386 and the final details in 1965. It took almost 600 years of construction. This is absolutely insane. It's the largest church in Italy. It's the largest church in the Italian Republic. The second largest in the landmass behind St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican City in the state of Vatican. It is one of the largest in the world. It's an absolutely insane cathedral. If you guys never been around here, and this is a Latin church, and this architect is pretty unique. It's in Gothic style. It's absolutely insane. So we're going to be flying over it very shortly. We're flying towards it as we speak. In fact, we might go a little slower for this one, of course. So we're going to check it out with you guys. I'm looking forward to this. This will be pretty fun. I haven't done much flying in Milan for general aviation. So beautiful city, though. So here we go, guys. Here we are, Milan, baby. And yes, you have the beautiful Alps in the background, too. Now, of course, we're flying to Linate today. The reason we're not going to Malpensa is it's further in the northeast and not super convenient when we want to do general aviation. So what's So here it is, guys. This is the San Siro. Straight ahead of us is San Siro, the home of AC and Inter. She's a big one. 75,000 people in this stadium. San Siro, absolutely massive ground. Its record attendance, by the way, for the record attendance, I think was around 80,000. So I'll pause. Okay, the record football match was 183,381 in 1997 against Schalke. Which, if you guys don't know about Schalke is in Germany, in Gelsenkirchen, I believe. That is in the Rhineland region. It's just west of Dortmund. So there's San Siro. So that is a mighty fine cathedral football Italian. But funnily enough, the all-time record at San Siro was 115,931 people for, get this, a One Direction concert. Imagine 115,000 to watch One Direction. Okay, no offense to the fans who actually like One Direction. It's just definitely very unusual. Definitely not what I expected, honestly. So, Milan. But here's something, though. There were historical records that said that San Siro once held up to 125,000. We don't know if there's any official record to confirm it. But imagine 125,000 to watch a football match here in Italy. So let's see if we can find the cathedral that held. Right here. So this here is the Basilica di Santa Maria di Grazie. That's the one that held the Last Supper. It's right here. The northeast of here is the Museo delle Monadini. which is right in the old castle, of course. And finally, of course, the best landmark in the city. The Milan Cathedral. Look at this. Look at the state of this, guys. Milan Cathedral. That is absolutely gorgeous cathedral. But this is Milan Cathedral. She's an absolute beauty. Absolutely beautiful cathedral. But Milan's a gorgeous city. No wonder people like to visit this place. Italy is one of the world's most visited countries, by the way. Yeah, there's the Milan Cathedral. Absolutely insanely gorgeous. Oh man, what a beautiful city. Oh, the faux ranch looks great here. So yeah, Milan Cathedral. That's a beautiful skyline if I ever see one. So we're about to arrive in Linate. Lima, India, Mike Echo. This airport, by the way, Linate, was actually built in the 1930s. It used to be the main airport in Milan. However, they moved it out of here to the new airport in Malpensa. There's also a third one in Bergamo, and they actually have the largest airport system in Italy with 59 million people in 2024 with the 3 airports. Linate actually last year had 10 million. But this is a pretty old airport that dates back into the 30s, of course. And it mainly hosts a lot of the smaller airport routes in Italy. Mainly with a lot of low-cost stuff, go to Linate. But if you want to visit the big one in Italy, it's Malpensa. And that's the big airport out of in Italy. So, but yeah, we're flying to Linate and we're gonna just park and call the stream. So we'll do that. We definitely appreciate you guys being here, of course. So I think there's a couple of people flying today. Let's see. So we'll do that, and we're going to wrap up the stream. Thank you guys so much for coming along with us today in Milan. We had a great time visiting Italy today. Absolutely stunning landmarks. So we'll be officially returning back on On Sunday, of course, we'll be back on for our National Park stream. We'll be covering the Everglades National Park. So we'll be tuned on in to there. So we're gonna go raid Spy Flight, actually, formerly known as 757 Spy. But we're gonna raid Spy Flight, of course. So I hope you guys stick around for the raid. He's gonna be doing some airliner flights. So we'll see you guys on Sunday. I hope you guys have a great start to your weekend, and I hope you all have a great day. Take care, everyone, and see you all soon. Goodbye, everyone.